This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Janet is away tonight. Manitobans have been encouraged to find out if they've been vaccinated for measles, as the virus makes a resurgence across the country. But that's putting a strain on the public health system. As CBC's Josh Crabb reports, people trying to make sure they're up to date on their shots have had trouble getting that information.
Oh, there you go. Yay!
Megan Waters' youngest daughter, Hypatia, will have to wait a few more months before she's eligible for her first dose of a measles vaccine. While there are no confirmed cases so far in Manitoba, Waters wants to make sure her two older sons, who are 4 and 8, are up to date on their shots, something health officials have called on people to do amid a rise in cases elsewhere in the world.
You see on the news that a very contagious and preventable disease is running around. You just want to double check, right?
Her kid's healthcare provider referred her to Manitoba Health. When Waters called, she couldn't get through to anyone, first trying in French.
The line just kind of went dead. So I tried again and I clicked English. And then I got a new message saying that they were experiencing higher than normal call volumes and to try again later.
Chief Provincial Public Health Officer Dr. Brent Rusin says reminders are being mailed to parents whose children are behind on their vaccines, but he's encouraged people are calling to check.
Certainly it puts, a bit of strain there, but it's also important that people are paying attention to this and hearing the messaging.
Rusin says physicians can give people their vaccine history, but only in person. He says public health would like to make it easier for people to get this information.
So these are type of things that can improve, access to some people and improve some of the workload on the system as well.
Pharmacies typically only access your vaccine history during COVID and flu shots. While they can't give measles shots, some pharmacies, like this Shoppers Drug Mart in Osborne Village, can make a request and provide your full vaccine history within a day or two. Manitoba Public Health says 80% of 2-year-olds had at least one dose of the measles vaccine at the end of 2022. Nearly 75% of 7-year-olds had 2 doses. Nearly 88% of 13-year-olds and 89% of 17-year-olds had 2 doses. The province says that's similar to the rate for people born in 1985 or later.
With something as infectious as measles, you actually need something in the sort of mid-90s percentage.
Waters wants to make sure her family does their part. Rusin says people who can't get through to public health should keep trying.
To me, I would probably just make sure that you had more people working the phones that day so the lines don't go dead.
She's made an appointment with their nurse practitioner, but it's not until May 1st. Waters hopes to confirm her kid's vaccine status before then. Josh Crabb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
More than 100 healthcare staff have walked off their job at 1010 Sinclair. For a second day, the union has hit the picket line to demand higher wages in what they're saying is the largest healthcare strike Manitoba has seen in decades. But that's left hundreds of Winnipeggers with disabilities without the people that usually care for them. Help has come for some, but there's still lots of uncertainty. CBC's Arturo Chang reports.
Nolan Smith has a regular morning routine, but needs healthcare workers to help him.
Getting into the bath, getting lotioned up, getting my clothes on, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that takes about, 2.5, 3 hours.
Smith is a paraplegic. He lives in a focus unit apartment. Some tenants there get regular visits from 1010 Sinclair workers who help them with basic care. That is until Wednesday, when about 160 healthcare workers hit the picket line. The strike means Smith's care is now in the hands of new people, agency healthcare workers brought in to fill the gap.
There's 3 attendants or healthcare aides that are at the foot of my bed trying to figure out who I am. They're asking me, are you James?
Still, Smith believes he's one of the lucky ones. Residents in other buildings didn't have anyone check in on them yesterday morning. Lori Ross lives a few blocks from Smith's building. She and her sister Chris checked in on tenants with disabilities and even provided personal care to some.
Well, they're all very grateful, and it's sad that they have to be grateful for having a complete stranger help them to do basic bodily functions.
Ross says no one in the building knew about the strike until she told them. Dean Russell lives a few doors down.
We're kept in the dark constantly, absolutely. We're just mushrooms, like the old story. We're, fed BS and, kept in the dark and fed BS, that's all.
Chris Ross says she just happened to be in the city when her sister called.
It was awful. Like it was sad because it's like I've never seen such inhumane conditions. Like you're letting people lay in bed in their own urine and feces. You're not even giving them a drink. Like they need medication.
The Winnipeg Regional Health Authority says they're providing staff to the units and training workers while the strike is ongoing. Smith says this situation has left him mentally exhausted.
Honestly, I have to laugh, because if I'm not laughing, I'm angry or I would be crying.
The union representing 1010 workers told CBC News staff care for residents and want to return to work, but that wages must go up. The executive director of 1010 Sinclair Housing says that money comes from funding it receives from the province and the WRHA. The nonprofit says it will continue to negotiate with the union. Arturo Chang, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The plan to open Portage and Main to pedestrians took a major step forward today. A motion calling for the removal of the barricades passed its first vote at City Hall. CBC's Cameron McLean reports we have more details about what that will cost and when it will happen.
By July 1st, 2025, this intersection could look very different. That's the date when Mayor Scott Gillingham hopes people will walk across the street for the first time in more than 4 decades.
For 150 years, Winnipeggers have been crossing intersections. And in Winnipeg, you can cross every intersection at grade except Portage and Main. This is just an intersection.
Last week, a report said it would cost up to $73 million and take 5 years to repair the waterproof membrane protecting the underground concourse. Gillingham says it costs the city $1 million a year to keep the concourse running. Today, the Property Committee unanimously passed a motion to open the intersection.
The motion asks for $13 million for street-level changes at Portage and Main. That includes the cost of demolishing the barricades and installing pedestrian crossings and other beautification upgrades. That doesn't include costs for anything below ground, including the decommissioning of the concourse. The city estimates that could cost anywhere from $20 to $50 million, but Mayor Scott Gillingham says even that is a rough estimate.
Patrick is from the Independent Living Resource Center.
At the meeting, disability advocate Patrick Stewart praised the decision to allow pedestrian crossings, but asked the city to reconsider closing the concourse, which connects to the skywalk system.
These pieces of indoor routes are really, really vital to our community.
Gillingham appeared to pour cold water on any potential scenario that opened the intersection while keeping the concourse.
To me, at this point, it's an either-or scenario.
But Property Chair Sherry Rowlands expressed at least a willingness to entertain the idea.
Cameron, I don't like binaries, right? Open, closed. My job today, obviously, is to add complexity to all of it.
The motion moves on to Executive Policy Committee next week, and then to Council for a final vote. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province is trying to create protest-free zones around places where abortions are provided. The NDP tried to make this a law for years, dating back to 2018. But now that they're in government, they can make it happen. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze. And Ian, what will this law accomplish?
Brittany, it will effectively create buffer zones, areas where anti-abortion protests are banned, like around clinics and the homes of healthcare staff who provide abortions. Families Minister Nahanni Fontaine says safety is paramount.
So Manitoba joins other jurisdictions that is now on the right side of history in respect of ensuring that citizens are able to access health care unimpeded.
Fontaine said people can still protest elsewhere. One of those people is Maria Slikerman, whose group spends 40 days every fall on a sidewalk outside the Health Sciences Center. She says they don't yell at people. They pray and talk.
We usually don't get people that are going for abortions because they're too far away. It's usually people that are saying, I've had an abortion and I will never do it again. Or my daughter had an abortion and now I miss my little grandchild.
Fontaine says if that's true, they should be fine with having those conversations elsewhere.
So, Ian, there was more talk today about an inquiry into the Carman tragedy and how Child and Family Services didn't remove one of the victims from the home where she was later found dead. What's the latest there?
The Tories are now calling for an inquiry into how 17-year-old Maya Grattan may have been failed by CFS. CBC has reviewed audio recordings and text messages that show Grattan feared for her safety in the home. She lived there with her cousin's partner, Ryan Manokisic, now charged with first-degree murder in the deaths of Grattan and 4 others. Here's PC Families critic Lauren Stone.
Manitobans need answers. The families need answers. This individual's calls for help, begging for help when unanswered, and that is unacceptable. And we need to understand why her calls were not received.
The government says it's open to an inquiry, but it wants the police investigation and any court cases to play out first. Brittany.
All right, thank you. That's CBC's Ian Fraze reporting live for us this evening. Now, Ryan Manokisic is the man charged in the death of Maya Grattan and 4 others. Today, a court heard Manokisic has been deemed fit to stand trial. Results from Manokisic's mental health assessment were delivered to a judge in court today, and a trial will go ahead. Manokisic is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder for the killings of his common-law partner, Amanda Clearwater, their 3 kids, and Clearwater's cousin. Their bodies were found earlier this month in 3 separate locations in and around Carman. Manokisic did not appear at the hearing. His case has been pushed forward to June. The family of a 19-year-old Nigerian international student who was fatally shot by Winnipeg police were in the city today for his funeral. Afolabi Opaso's sisters, who spoke publicly for the first time, traveled from Nigeria and the United States. As the CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports, they're demanding answers and justice for their brother.
It was an emotional day, commemorating Afolabi Opaso. His family traveled from outside Canada to say goodbye.
I never would have imagined that in my lifetime I'll be coming to Manitoba to bury my brother. It's been the toughest thing I've had to do in my life.
At a funeral home on Broadway in Winnipeg, Afolabi's older sisters remembered him as the family's favorite, a kind and passionate teen with ambitious dreams and a big heart.
Up until now, I didn't believe he's no more. It's really difficult to come to the term that he's no longer alive. Afolabi is very dear to us and all his friends in Nigeria.
We miss him so much. Since December 31st, all I had is sleepless night. I'm always thinking about him.
Afolabi died after being shot by Winnipeg police on New Year's Eve. Officers were responding to a well-being call at an apartment on University Crescent near the University of Manitoba, where he studied. At the time, police said Afolabi had been armed with 2 knives.
We just want to know what really transpired, what really happened. Afolabi was shot 3 times. 3 times. It's just too much to take in.
Yemisi Opaso says her brother was experiencing a mental health crisis. She says his roommate told her they called 911 to get him help at the hospital because he was hurting himself.
I'm filled with anger, confusion. I have a lot of questions. I need answers. We want justice for our brother.
The family is meeting with Alberta's police watchdog on Friday. Manitoba's independent investigation unit transferred its investigation to them in January to avoid any perceived conflict of interest. It's unclear how long the probe could take.
We are hoping that they give us all the answers that we need as soon as possible, because we don't want this to take forever. We need closure.
The family also demands accountability and changes to police answering mental health calls through training and the use of non-lethal weapons.
It's not like it's going to bring him back, but I'm going to feel a sense of satisfaction that he didn't die in vain.
The family says he'll be buried in Canada. as they await answers and honor his memory. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Some people in South St. Vital want a developer to stop dumping soil on property near their homes. Damon Farm is privately owned land along the Red River. It's in an area where residents use well water instead of the city's water system. Bill Lopak worries a proposed housing development will harm his drinking water and the surrounding ecosystem.
This will never be recovered if that soil is put on this property. We want the dumping stopped. We want the soil removed.
The soil comes from the University of Manitoba's nearby Southwood Circle development. The university says it got permission from the property owner A&S Homes to stockpile soil at Damon Farm. Councillor Marcus Chambers says the soil is for a future development, but a city spokesperson says the permit only allows for temporary stockpiling. CBC News has reached out to A&S Homes, but has not yet received a response. University of Manitoba Bison sprinter Jordan Sufi broke a provincial record when he ran 60 meters in less than 6.7 seconds at the Canada West Championships. Now he's looking for gold at the U Sports National Track and Field Championships, which got underway today in Winnipeg.
I'm Jordan Sufi. I'm in the compete for the U of M Bisons. I'm a fifth-year student and a fourth-year eligibility for Bison track and field team. The events I do for indoor track are the 60-meter, and then we also have a relay, so that's the 4x200. My journey kind of began back in grade 10, where I was kind of like inspired by my brother, because he also has like a track and cross-country background, and I just had natural talent for speed. Like I was able to make the provincial final in the 100-meter and in the 200-meter, and I was approached by one of the head coaches, Claude Berube, to see if I wanted to join the track team. I previously did soccer as well too, since I had that kind of talent. But once my soccer was not doing too crazy, I decided to switch to track, knowing how much talent I have and how much I can build upon that. As you can see, kind of today, right now, just breaking records. About 2 years ago, the previous Bison record, which was held for a long time, was 681. And my very first race of the season, I tied it. That was a sign that I was gonna run really fast that season. And then from next meet, I ran a Bison Classic, I ran 679. And then the next meet I ran was 671. So it's big jumps from the previous record mark.
Jordan Sufi lane 5, but in all reality, there's 5 or 6 of these young men.
When I get into the blocks, I just visualize myself on how I'm gonna run the race. I also think about driving out of the blocks. So you wanna think about coming down low and then slowly building your momentum on the way up, so you can kind of conserve that speed later on in the race. And that's kind of my strategy with it.
They're out of the blocks. It was a good start, but then a stumble by Easy, and it's close to the end, but there is Sufi with the finish. 664. Oh my goodness, 664.
In that moment, 2 years ago, it felt amazing. I felt like I was on top of the world, and then it was great. It was a great feeling to have, because you know how much faith you have into building the program and just working out, and then having that goal of getting better each year, just getting better each meet, having a process to follow from my coach and stuff. So it's definitely helped me along the way. What's been happening now with my season, where I hit my personal best at Canada West, which is a conference meet. And then also U Sports too, the plan is also to PB as well with the plans I'm doing right now. So it's a matter of training smart, at this point in the season, and not hard. Looking at the competition itself, we're hosting it here in Winnipeg. You basically have home field advantage, so you just basically have everything you can to win. I'm hitting my peak fitness as of right now. I feel pretty confident that I'm able to win U Sports just based off the training and based on how healthy I've been for the past couple weeks. This is the year where I feel I am going to win this.
Weather specialist Riley Laychuk is in now. And Riley, I was clearing so much snow off my car as we left here yesterday that it was massive amounts. And then this morning, it was a bit of a tough drive in depending on which route you took into downtown today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did get some snow. Yeah, we'll talk about that. I have some video to show you. This is a video that was shot last night of those plows starting to get that cleanup underway across the city. Of course, still much to do and still a few flurries falling across southern Manitoba. But yeah, we did see that big cleanup start in earnest at about 7 o'clock or so last night. I want to show you a map here quickly, just a little bit of a direction of what you're looking at here. So these are some of the observed snowfall numbers that you see here. So St. James area, about 15 centimeters, downtown about 13. These are from people who observed these and sent them into either Environment Canada or through CoCoRaHS. The map behind it is a bit of a composite map of snowfall accumulation based on radar data, observation data, and a number of other factors that has kind of color-coded the snowfall for us to give you a sense of where the heaviest accumulation fell. So according to this anyway, South Winnipeg getting in that 10 to 12 centimeter range, these whiter gray colors into that 15 and above. So you can kind of see that track where the heaviest accumulation kind of went through along Lake Manitoba into the Interlake. So we didn't get as much as in Winnipeg as other places in Manitoba, like say, for example, Miami or Portage La Prairie. But yeah, it gives you a good sense of where that snow fell. So looking at how that looked on radar, yeah, you can see that as we get through the day Wednesday into the early part of this morning, the cloud building in through Wednesday, and yeah, that sort of bullseye with the heavier snow and those heavier bands moving through. So here's how that looks right now on satellite radar. Just some cloud cover starting to clear out. We're starting to see some clearing already back to the west. That will continue as we get through the night tonight. Starting a mainly sunny day tomorrow across much of Manitoba. Still some lingering clouds and maybe a slim chance of a flurry in far northern Manitoba. Otherwise, Friday into Saturday looking like a mainly sunny day. Temperatures moderating to something a little bit more seasonal as well as we head through into the weekend. So minus 11 in Winnipeg. Visibility a lot better than it was at this time yesterday. Remember, almost 10 kilometers now. Northwest winds at 15. We're looking at a low of minus 18 overnight tonight. West winds at 10 in Winnipeg. Minus 17 first thing in the morning with that sun cloud mix, and warming up to minus 5, which is almost seasonal for this time of the year, and a mainly sunny sky on the way for your Friday into Saturday. Mainly sunny as well. Minus 3. That time change getting a little bit closer in in the forecast here. Minus 1 for Sunday, and then heading above 0 as we start next week, Brittany, and maybe a little bit more snow on the way into mid next week. We'll talk about that a bit later on in the show.
And we know that time change is hard for parents.
Yes.
So a couple of days to get adjusted to that. Thanks so much, Riley.
You're welcome.
Coming up, tragedy in an Ottawa suburb. 6 people are dead, including a mother and her 4 young children, along with a family friend. A 19-year-old man now facing first-degree murder and attempted murder charges. We'll have more after the break. A mother, her 4 young children and a family friend are dead after an attack in a townhouse in an Ottawa suburb. The oldest child was just 7 years old, and the youngest was less than 3 months. A 19-year-old man is now facing first-degree murder and attempted murder charges. Nicole Williams has more.
A normally quiet suburban neighborhood in the city's south end, now dealing with a nightmare.
I saw a guy was sitting on the driveway and yelling, and so the police came, and then they took him away. And then after that, so many police cars and ambulances were around 20-25 police cars were there.
Police found 6 people dead in this townhouse just before 11 last night, newcomers to Canada, all from Sri Lanka. 35-year-old Darshani Delanthaka Aikanayake and her 4 young children, all between the ages of 7 and just 2 months old.
This one will undoubtedly weigh on the hearts of everyone for a long time.
The other victim, a 40-year-old man living with the family. The only survivor, Aikanayake's husband, who went to hospital with injuries. He's in serious but stable condition.
I can only imagine how difficult it is to witness such a terrible tragedy, and our emergency personnel deserve our support and gratitude for their work.
Police quickly arrested 19-year-old Fabrio De Zoisa, who appeared in court this afternoon, charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder. Police say he was an international student, new to Canada, also from Sri Lanka, living with the family. Police say he used an edged weapon to kill the victims.
Our investigators and forensic teams are working very hard to determine all of the facts and ensure justice is done.
As the investigation continues, the community now coming to grips with the horror of what happened.
I'm obviously in shock, and I can't explain it. It's tough.
Did you know them?
No, I didn't, but I'm seeing it, seeing the guys in their white suits and everything. It's more real now.
A memorial has been set up nearby so that neighbors can pay their respects. Police are asking people to stay away from the scene while they conduct their investigation. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
Sweden formally joined NATO today at an official ceremony in Washington.
Russia will stay a serious threat to the Euro-Atlantic security for the foreseeable future. It was in this light that Sweden applied to join the NATO Defense Alliance, to gain security, but also to provide security. Ukraine is fighting bravely for its freedom, but they are also defending European freedom.
Depositing the instrument of accession to the U.S. State Department marks Sweden's formal admission into the transatlantic military alliance. It's the second country after Finland to join NATO since Russia invaded Ukraine 2 years ago. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau welcomed the 32nd member to the Western Alliance. He also noted that Canada was the first country to ratify Sweden's accession. The Swedish flag will be raised outside NATO headquarters in Brussels on Monday. Leaked federal documents indicate that Canada would have trouble providing military support to NATO allies in need. Murray Brewster reports on a presentation by the Department of National Defence.
Canadian troops in Latvia, rehearsing for the nightmare scenario, a full-fledged war in Europe. Troops who would be in need of rapid reinforcement. And that is the nightmare scenario for leaders back home, and detailed in the military's own assessment of its own readiness in documents obtained by CBC News. It begins with a warning. In an increasingly dangerous world where demand for the CAF is increasing, our readiness is decreasing. As of December 2023, only 58% of the military could be counted on to meet NATO's notice to move, and 45% of its equipment was considered unserviceable. The biggest challenge: people shortfalls and funding shortfalls, spare parts and ammo. The military is down 15,780 members.
This is borderline atrocious.
Experts say it's a crisis brought about by successive Liberal and Conservative governments kicking tough decisions about equipment down the road.
Well, guess what? It's 2024 now, and most of those problems are now here, and they're literally kicking us in the face.
The readiness crisis comes at a time when Canada is under pressure from allies and Republican presidential hopeful Donald Trump to spend more on defense.
It impacts our credibility at NATO for sure, but it impacts our security interests too, right? It's in our security interest to be a credible contributor to NATO.
The Liberal government insists it's trying to fix military recruiting and is investing heavily in new equipment. Even still, the Minister of Defence says things aren't quite there yet.
My assessment is that we've got some work to do.
We have 3 separate public opinion polls out this week that are showing Canadians are becoming increasingly worried about the state of the military and Canada's place in the world. Now, one of those polls found almost a third of Canadians list it as their top concern. I mean, I can add personally that after almost 20 years of covering this beat, I've never seen numbers like that before. But keep in mind, the upcoming federal budget plans to cut $79 million from readiness for other priorities within the department, like buying equipment.
That's the CBC's Murray Brewster reporting. March 31st is an important day for Ukrainian citizens. They have until the end of the month to come to Canada on an emergency visa. And those who are already here have until that day to file paperwork extending their stay for 3 years. Georgie Smythe has more.
Thank you. A new life in Canada begins with paperwork.
Bye, have a good day.
The emergency visa program that brought more than 200,000 Ukrainians to Canada is ending this month. Anyone approved needs to be in the country before March 31st, and Ukrainians are arriving in their thousands.
I come here because a program is finished, and I think it's important to do it because it's a really good change.
Worked very hard to...
Support groups like this church are noticing an uptick because come April 1st, it'll become harder for Ukrainians to travel here.
It puts us in line with any other individual from many other countries in the world. So it is a very different, it's not a slight change, it's a very big change.
Andrei Batitsky and his wife Katerina Bondarenko arrived in Canada 4 months after Russia invaded their country.
We just built everything to have a good life in Kharkiv. In one moment, everything is destroyed.
They're still adjusting to the pleasures and pressures of life here.
Take a look at my credit history. You will understand how it's tight. Yeah, it's really tight.
I'm a makeup artist.
Working several jobs while trying to extend their visa for another 3 years.
I will try to apply for a PR card because, when you have a permanent resident status in Canada, it looks like you are human.
Some Ukrainians have an easier path to permanent residency if a member of their family is already a citizen. Immigration lawyers say for most, options to stay longer are limited.
You just have to be mindful that there is always a chance that after 5 years or 6 years in Canada, you might have to go home.
Yes.
For this young couple, it's a possibility difficult to imagine as war grinds on. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Authorities have now revealed the names of the 5 Canadians who died in a plane crash in Nashville earlier this week. They were all members of a family that lived in King Township, about 50 kilometers north of Toronto. The victims include Viktor Totsenko, who is the pilot, his wife Rima, and their 3 children, David, Adam, and Emma. The children ranged in age from 12 to 7. The mayor of King Township described the incident as a devastating loss for the tight-knit community. The family's single-engine plane crashed and burst into flames near downtown Nashville Monday night. Shortly before the crash, Dotsenko told air traffic controllers his engine had shut down. He said the plane was too low and too far from the runway that had been cleared for him. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada has assigned a representative to help U.S. investigators look into the crash. Coming up, our planet has been breaking global heat records for many months now. We've seen the effects here on land, but what's happening in the ocean? More on how scientists are trying to find out after the break. It might be hard to comprehend given all the snow we've seen here in Manitoba over the past week, but our planet has been breaking global heat records for many months now, and that includes the temperatures measured on the sea surfaces. Now experts are trying to figure out the effects of such extreme temperatures. Senior science reporter Nicole Martellaro looks into that.
If this story sounds familiar, it's because it is. Month after record-breaking month, global temperatures continue to rise, making the climate crisis come into plain view, bringing record-breaking wildfires, heat waves, rainfall, and that's just on Earth's surface. Our oceans, which make up more than 70% of our planet, are also heating up. The Copernicus Climate Change Service found that sea surface temperatures in February reached an all-time high of 21.06 degrees Celsius, beating out last August's record temperature. While there is an El Niño event in the Pacific Ocean, which brings warmer water with it, it's just not enough to explain the anomalous temperatures, experts say. Scientists are particularly concerned about what these high ocean temperatures could mean for our delicately balanced ecosystems.
These marine heat waves can do a number on our marine ecosystems who are not ready for that long and that warm a water. So I'm worried about our coral ecosystems and bleaching. It's a dangerous game we're playing with our ocean.
And experts say it's unlikely that there's a single cause for the abnormally high temperatures, but rather say it could be a culmination of various factors that include El Niño and changes in the atmosphere.
It's going to take us a while to sort this all out. This data is surprising. We're trying to reconcile it with all the other things going on our planet, which we've upended in terms of its climate. And so it's going to take some time to really get to the bottom of why the Atlantic is warming. But we know overall, in the long run, we're heating up the planet in a big way, and we're going to keep setting these kinds of records every few years.
For now, all eyes are on March, as El Niño is expected to weaken further, and, hopefully, lower ocean temperatures. Nicole Martellaro, CBC News, Toronto.
Riley Lachuk is back, and Riley, it is so nice to look outside the studio at almost 6:45 and it not be complete and total darkness outside.
And if you like brighter evenings, we're in for a big change come the weekend, Brittany. Of course, with daylight saving time coming back. But here's a look at your sunset tracker. Because we are looking at your sunsets getting quite a bit later into the evening hour. So today's sunset officially at 6:22 this evening, but we see daylight saving coming in at March 10th, which bumps things back an hour. So 7:31 at this time next weekend, and 3 weeks from now at the end of the month, we're looking at sunset almost at 8 o'clock in the evening. So days are getting longer, and we're about to enter that time change, of course, as we head into Sunday. So -11 downtown, -10 at the Forks, -8 in Morris. Looking across Westman, -9 for both Melita and Brandon. Swan River sitting at -8 this hour, and -7s for a good chunk of northern Manitoba, the Paw, Flin Flon, Lynn Lake, Thompson, and Norway House, and still a little bit of lingering snow in the Gillam and Shamattawa region, which will start to clear out. So here is the remnants of that low pressure system and the associated cloud with it that is going to push out tonight. So by the time we get through the overnight period, we'll start to see some clearing through northwestern Ontario as well as through southeastern Manitoba. Overnight tonight, -18s for both Gimli and Winnipeg, a bit warmer along extreme southern Manitoba with -13 in Emerson. And where we're going to see those clear skies sooner, like we're seeing now with some clearings, some much colder temperatures through western Manitoba, -22 in Melita, -23 in Brandon. And as I said, a few lingering flurries through Island Lake and Shamattawa, lows tonight around -23, -24 degrees. -8, mainly sunny sky by the time we hit afternoon for much in northern Manitoba. -4 in Thompson, as well as in the Paw and OCN. -7 in Melita, -8 in Brandon, -4 for the Morden Winkler region. Into southeastern Manitoba, -5 is what I have for Winnipeg tomorrow. -6 in Steinbach, -3 in both Emerson and Sprague. We'll see mainly sunny skies, a little bit more cloud to start the day, but we'll start to see some of that moving out as we get later into the afternoon for sure, and a mainly sunny day ahead as well for northwestern Ontario. Once that cloud pushes out, -1 in Fort Francis and -3, Brittany, for Red Lake and Dryden. I'll have your 7-day forecast with some warm temperatures coming up in a bit.
I like the sounds of that. Thank you, Riley.
You're welcome.
Well, what happens when your hero lets you down? A musical being performed this weekend explores how to separate the art from the artist. It's called Pain to Power, a Kanye West musical protest. We'll explain more on that after the break.
See, all of my kindness is taken for weakness.
Rapper Kanye West is no stranger to the spotlight. He's had chart-topping hits, and he's a successful fashion designer. But he's also had some controversial political views, which has fans torn. A new play called Pain to Power, a Kanye West musical protest, is exploring how to separate the art from the artist. And that's where our next two guests come in, the stars of the musical, Seth Zosky and CJ Capital. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Seth, I want to start with you. So when did you first start to have these mixed feelings about West, and how did you deal with them?
I started first having mixed feelings in 2015 when he made a comment about slavery being a choice. And I was like, what is this guy up to? And that was about 7 years after I started listening to his music and falling in love with his music. And then as the years went on, then he turned against my community as well. And that's when he really broke my heart in 2022 with his anti-Semitic comments.
So CJ, this show focuses on the relationships we have with our idols. I understand you had some similar experiences with West's remarks. What impact did that have on you?
Yeah, probably started listening to Kanye when I was 8 years old. So I really looked up to him as a superhero. So in 2015, the comments about slavery, and then in 2022, White Lives Matter, those comments, it broke my heart. Just left me feeling like my superhero let me down. And so that's when I knew there was a real deep connection where I couldn't just brush it off my shoulder. I really had to do something about it, yeah.
CJ, we know that West has apologized at times for some of his comments. Is an apology enough to bring you back to keeping him as that idol status?
Unfortunately, it's not. I think with such a level of influence, there is a level of responsibility, and I think that's where the show comes in. When we make other humans our idols, we know humans can make mistakes, but with that level of influence, there's a big level of responsibility, and you can't get back to being a place of a hero once you've broken people's hearts like that.
Yeah, I think it's really hard for some people to really reconcile comments that people make and their music and their art. Seth, where do you stand on West today? Can you separate the art from the artist?
Where I stand on it today, I mean, I have a bit of trouble with it, especially doing this show, because I've been trying to find so much content and lyrics we can use and ways we can repurpose his music. So I've been listening to a lot of Kanye, which feels like a juxtaposition between how I'm feeling about him and whether I can separate that art. But right now I'm listening to Kanye, but it's through a different lens. It's through a different lens. I'm trying to flip the script on his work.
How hard is that, Seth? Is it easy to flip that script? I mean, you're listening to something that at times really hurt you.
Yeah, well, that's where this show comes in, Pain to Power. It's really about taking our pain and turning it into power. And, CJ and I have been creating together for 5 years now. And the best way we know how to deal with pain is to create. And so that's where this show comes in.
I love that. CJ, what do you want the audience to take away from this when they come, when they listen to that message, and when they walk out of that theater?
When people leave the theater, I want them to feel energized and excited by the stories that we just shared. And I want them to really see that we can see each other for whole human beings. And that, like I'm Haitian, and a big Haitian saying is "L'union fait la force," and there's strength in unity. So even though you've been hurt or your community's been hurt, sticking together is the way to get through it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are doing this together. Thank you both so much for joining us. Still ahead, Riley Lachuk is back with a final check on your weather. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
Here's a look at your almanac for your Thursday. Record high, 12 degrees. Didn't get quite close to that today. Record low being -37. Normally -3, and that's where we should be closer to tomorrow. So waking up to -17 in the morning. We'll see a mainly sunny sky by the time we get to the afternoon with a high of -5 degrees. We will be at that -3 normal high for Saturday. A little bit of wind on the way for Sunday, of course, with that time change once again. +2 for your Monday, and then we see temperatures warming up again. Chance of a flurry, though, overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. Temperatures on the freezing mark and getting to a high of +3 with a mix of sun and clouds on the way for next Thursday. 29-year-old New York woman has sailed her way into the record books.
She's the first American woman to race solo and nonstop around the world. That's tonight's Daily Lift. Family and friends welcomed Cole Brouwer back to dry land in Spain yesterday. She sailed out from the same port 130 days ago to circumnavigate the globe on her 12-meter sailboat.
While approaching Cape Horn, Brouwer hurt her ribs, yet despite the injuries, she managed to make the necessary repairs and keep going. Brouwer was the only woman and the youngest in the event, racing against 15 competitors.
I was just saying 130 days to be alone. Like, I like my space,
yeah,
but that's a long time.
That is a long time to be alone. I don't know if I could do that. I think that I would probably get sick of not sleeping in my bed and being on land.
Well, you're never alone because we're here with you, and we'll be back here with you tomorrow night.
See ya.